So, da geht's auch weiter. Nach etwas Essen, nach 60 Kilo in die Tasche hochwuppen. Kann ich mich schon mal machen, sollte man sagen. Es macht langsam Fortschritte und mein Schreibtisch ist heute gekommen. Zumindest ein paar Teile vom Schreibtisch. Morgen kommt noch mehr. Und ja, eine Box alleine davon waren 60 Kilo. So. Ich hatte nur noch mal geguckt, weil es mir noch in den Kopf eingefallen ist. Hat er dachte wirklich alles was schon unlocked, so wenn man ihn bekommt? Nein, hat er nicht. Natürlich haben wir unsere ganze Zeit schon ausgegeben vorhin. Dementsprechend müssen wir das nochmal später machen. Aber wäre noch ganz nice, das von Dach zu machen. Was wir jetzt aber erstmal als nächstes machen, vielleicht soll ich die Pause mal kurz meine Stimme leicht zu schonen von dem ganzen Gelesen vorher. Sunshine Agnès. 14 Chapter. Jedes kiesige Game wird es uns immer wieder antun. Wir werden eine Lesestunde einlegen müssen. Und etwas Lesestunde beginnt jetzt. Chapter 1. The Cream-Colored Girl. Edwin Arnold had never been able to get better of that girl, not even once. He was confident in his physical strength and thought himself fairly sharp to boot. Yet despite that, he was caught in a losing streak that left him at a loss for words. Not much had changed since the day, 2 years ago. The ticking of the grandfather's clock served as a reminder that time continued to pass inside the cafe. The 19-year-old Edwin, however, paid it no mind as he mumbled to himself. He switched spot by the counter. Stell mir einfach mal das. Ganze laute Hintergrundmusikstimme kann ich mal lesen. Aber mir fällt gerade ein, bevor ich das Singen gehen soll, ist auch alles ein bisschen lauter. Ich habe es zugestellt, für Neo Fantasy Hintermenschen muss ich die Game Sound eben mein OBS immer hochdrehen. Ich schätze, Port ist was runtertreten zu laut sein sollte. It's about as perfect as the article can get, right? Having fully incorporated details from his interviews and proofread the writing 3 times already, he continued to crumble as he quickly made his final edits. If his piece could withstand the scrutiny of the afternoon's editorial meeting, he would finally get to be published. It wasn't about to let a chance like that pass him by. He needed to make sure that there wasn't a single period of blaze. The boy raised his head and looked across the counter. What do you think, Agnès? Heck if I know, who even cares? Agnès passed by with a yawn. Her curly, green-blonde locks, which hadn't changed in 2 years, also swaying with her every motion as of dancing in a non-existent wind. Why do you have to come bugging in here this early in the morning? We're not even open yet. She scribbled to herself as she tried the glass in her hand and placed it back into the cupboard. Come on, just look at it. I mean, please check it over. You know how rare it is for a rookie reporter like me to even get a shot at having their own column, don't you? Edwin pressed his hands together and bowed. They stared down at him in silence. She had long gotten used to how much she depended on her for help, even though she was 2 years his junior. Jeez, he's so annoying. She thought to herself. At last, she relented, scanning the pages as she tried another glass. Oops. Impressive work, Ace. You reflect up 3 spelling mistakes. And isn't the date wrong? Of course. Looking for it. He pressed his red pen once more and began making his corrections. I should stop accidentally hitting. Also, ich soll nicht irgendwo wieder hinter stehen. It's hard like fixing those who are heavy much, you know? Well, if you got something to say, just say it. I'm putting my all into this. Shut out, it's just a coding column. So what? An article is an article. I guess everyone saw it somewhere. Still, I'm not sure you've got what it takes to be a reporter at. She grumbled to herself while he toiled away at his corrections. Yes, for a writer, you have 0 attention to teacher, and you're a numbskull to boot. Sure, you passed the paper preliminary exam thanks to my help, but isn't it a stretch to think you can become a real reporter? I used to long wondered why a terrible student like Ed would want to be a journalist. And so, she immediately regretting speaking up as Edwin collected his draft. So then downs a wide smile. Ah, whatever. Being a righteous reporter is cool. He told Agnès to expect good news and bounded out of the cafe, leaving the room silent, save for the chime of the bell above the door. Oh, hurry, Edwin. Agnès shrugged, and the counter beside her. A drowsy black cat let out a yawn. This was... vielleicht. Chapter 2, the Eastern News Agency. Anchorville was a sizable city in the Republic of Colorado. Though smaller than the capital, it was still home to a respectable number of businesses. Wide streetscapes faced the mountains, encircling the city, where iron-marked and harbor districts faced the river, creating a sweeping vista to behold. Rounding the corner of the market, Edwin pedaled hard on his bike, rushing down Sunset Street. The news agency, a small local publication, lay just ahead. The newsroom was in a frenzy as nearly half of the staff were standing and shouting. Royce, the veteran reporter, rigorously tapped the back of his fingers against the draft, unaware of Edwin's arrival. The business editor-chief, business editor Clef, had the telephone to the seer, looking as if he hadn't slept all night. The copy editor, or the editor-in-chief, Chang, nodded along with a stern expression. From what Edwin could glean, there had been a delay covering a recent traffic accident. He kept to himself, stepped to his seat, and took out his trusty runner bag. Someone was in a good mood despite being late. The voice that cut through the commotion came from Brandon, a middle-aged and with salt and pepper hair. He was the editor of the culture section. Upon seeing the supervisor, Ed wasted no time shoving his draft in the bundle's face. "This article is perfect. Please submit it at the editorial meeting for me." There may not be any spelling mistakes this time, unless you're looking to get scolded again. Aaron's Brosmer returned. Everything's going to go great today. I guarantee it. Suddenly, one of the operative's four phones rang. A reporter named Kari answered the by passing by. "What?" Kari is bird Frau. At 5 a.m.? Yes. Come. Kari waved an arm through the air. The editorial department, which until then had been noisier than a train platform, fell silent. Setting down the phone, Kari turned to gaze at Chang. "Mr. Chang, it seems Trevor Hart is dead." Someone grabbed her twice, shouting, "I need all the political columnists to come around, ASAP." "Alright," yes, the reporters, rising to their feet. "That guy, huh? It's gonna be a big local story." The crowd murmured amongst themselves as more than 10 staff circled editor-in-chief's desk. "Who was this Hart guy again?" "Seriously, he was a big shot around here. He was a famous intellectual. How do you not know him?" This was gonna require a special feature, but begrudgingly under the chatter. He tossed Edwin's draft back to him. "The afternoon editorial meeting's cancelled, Ed. You're going to be assisting on this story." "Huh? But why?" "Don't why me. I'm your editor, pal. Do as I say." Seeing Brennan's scowl, Edwin leapt to his feet by instinct, but was suddenly overcome by a sharp sense of vertigo as if the ground was shaking. And to see the others in the room do the same horror, he realized what it actually was. The sound of steel folding in on itself, shrieking the office from outside the agency, followed by the grating roar of metal grinding against concrete. The cacophony ended with a crash. Trembling window. It saw an overturned oval bus billowing smoke in the sky. In a flash, he ran out of the newsroom as fast as he could, bag in hand. It wasn't his instinct as a reporter that made him move, but the fact that he could have sworn he saw Agnès amidst the panicked crowd. Chapter 3, Golden Eyes. Agnès! Edwin dashed into the street and toward the next block over. He was positive that he had really seen Agnès, as well as confident that he could catch up to her. Indeed, that she was in the crowd ahead. For a brief second, their eyes met, but a fleeting bystander bumped Edwin's shoulder, and when he looked back, she was gone. "Why is she running from me?" Edwin wondered. An explosion rang out as the overturned bus burst into flames again. Edwin cursed as he ran to the door of the bus and took off his coat to smooth the fire. As he attempted to wrench open the door, cries of help spilled out. The bus driver's limb dangled from the window. "It doesn't matter if my draft ends up in the paper or not," Edwin thought. "Never underestimate a righteous reporter." You're going shopping again today, alright, Kagemaru? Noticing Edwin off earlier that morning, Agnès was preparing to go out herself. The night before, she had remembered that Agnès' birthday was coming up. Agnès' uncle, who owned the cafe, would be turning 40 this year. Right at his birthday, she would size up the topic as, it's too much of a hassle. So she would still end up getting him something, the way she had last year, and the year before. However, she couldn't treat her uncle, to whom she owed so much, the same way. And he sat on a glass of water to scold Kagemaru, who was still asleep on the counter for the 18th time. "Are you listening to me, lazy bones?" she asked the black cat's only reply was a deep yawn that contorted its face into an ugly abstraction. Honestly. His uncle carried beer bottles into the bag and just let him know that she was heading to her room on the 2nd floor. Maybe she should put on something more comfortable. She was in and out of her room in a flash, returning down the hall wearing a light tank top. That's right, she grabbed her favorite knit cap from its peg on the wall and put on as she humped her way down the stairs. Kagemaru stared at her blankly. "Wow, no one's army, so what's the big deal?" He shrugged at the fussy violin and opened the door. "Let's get going, Kagemaru." With a graceful leap, the black cat landed atop her knit cap, sending a cream-colored curls flying. "I can't believe you," she roared. The most inconvenient aspect of Agnès' waist-long hair was how much it bounced. She attempted to smooth her locks down there and there, but simply couldn't be tamed. 10 years ago, Agnès' mother disappeared. Father was good to her, so she continued living with him until she turned 15. However, her father couldn't give up on finding his wife, so he entrusted Agnès to his brother and left in search for his beloved. In time, Agnès came to understand their feelings to the point where it made her ache. Her mother surely loved her father just as much as she did her. So, what to do? What to do? On your side, multiple stalls lined the Harborside Market. She'd come in search of a gift, but hadn't considered what was actually going to buy. She would just asked the uncle. Her side was interrupted by an overbus turning past. The large bus had drifted out of its lane, at the median, and lodged into a truck going the opposite direction. The turning green chassis cleared in the sunlight. The tires had begun to fly, twisting in all directions. The driver must already be dead, thought Agnès as she watched the bus soar in the air. Her mind was in turmoil, yet at the same time she had never been more calm. Once the bus hit the ground, they would all die. The man in the front row, the pregnant woman by the window. "Kagemaru!" As he called, the black cat opened his golden eyes, and he stood the same. Amidst the scream of people running for their lives, her 4 golden eyes gazing at a scene that had yet to unfold. Chapter 4, Cry for Justice. Aaron rescued one passenger after another. The corner marked had delved into panic in the wake of the crash. But still, the truck the bus had collided with had been carrying flammable materials. Aaron coughed violently as hot, thick smoke filled the air around him, searing his skin. "I can't give up," Aaron thought. "There are still people left inside who need me. Help me! Grab my hand, it's narrow, but I can't get you out. And it's going to be hard." "You can, I'm pregnant." "What?" I shouted without thinking. He tried to get a hold of himself, but his thoughts were spiraling. He was only 19. This was way out of his depth. Mind racing, he frantically tried to calm the woman, turning her to wait while he stood and surveyed the area. So the cars had been caught up in the crash, laid motionless in the street. Brandon and the near staff had followed Edwin outside to assist the rescued passengers. Sirens swayed faintly in the distance. The cavalry was on its way at last. "You gotta get down from there," yelled Brandon. "The truck is loaded with gunpowder. It could blow at any second." "Well, like hell I will." Aaron suddenly became enraged. "Why did this accident happen? Why are there so few people helping?" he yelled to himself. "Why didn't he just run from me?" I had a feeling that she fled out of shock after spotting him. You know better than to be upset though. It was only natural that someone would run if a huge overbus came hurling toward them. I thought, however, that little to calm his rage. "I did run away, Agnès." "Idiot, who said anything about running?" Cold water suddenly engulfed Edwin's body, bewildered he turned around, only to then meet Agnès' beautiful blue eyes. She stood there, panting with her bucket in hand. And could always admit it belonged to a fishmonger, seeing as it reeked of fish. "Oh, nice work, kid. Leave the rest to us." "Aaron, this way, hurry!" A brigade of bucket-armed fishermen and fishmongers appeared behind Agnès. Together they lost the fires left and right in quick succession. Of course, we're next to the harbor for that one. It's just right to and from as she bounded around. Working out orders. You, get over there. You, go fetch the hatchet. Is curse something else? Ed whispered. I get out of my way. The woman's pregnant, right? The girl grabbed over the front of the bus, taking him by the hand. I gently coaxed her to freedom. She then turned to Edwin. Yours would have been way easier if it hadn't come, right? What do I have to say that for? Edwin shouted. Girl with the green blonde hair cracked a relieved smile. Don't worry about it. You really are dancing, you know that. After sunset, the clattering of a cocktail shaker was the only noise disturbing the silence of the cafe. Aya's uncle liked to serve the other stuff in the store at night. The repetitive sounds of the shaker was disrupted by the door flying open. Agnès didn't bother to look, she knew it was that. So, how did it go? She asked, facing away from him. Everyone's in stable condition. Edwin recited the facts they had learned from the police and hospital reports. There were only minor burns and injuries, excluding the bus driver who died even before impact. Considering the circumstances, people were calling it a miracle. Unaided by his speedy rescue, of course. Edwin continued, and the cause of the accident was... The driver died at the rear and the bus went out of control, right? Yes. How did you know that? Shrugged as she cranked up the opera radio, which was turned to report on the accident. Said, maybe you aren't cut out to be a journalist after all. Personally, I think you'll be better off working as a full-time hero. Huh. I don't rub the sands and cleared. Hey Toos, go and get me a bourbon. We're trying to act tough ass. I know you don't drink. Here, let me get you an iced tea. As she prepared his drink, Agnès wondered what the bus driver cause of death was. The host on the opera radio was now covering a different traffic accident. Feels like there had been way more accidents than normal lately. She mused to herself as she grabbed a new glass. So, ich trinke nochmal kurz was. Wie immer, regulär immer ein bisschen was trinken, weil ansonsten die Stimme stirbt. Und mein Mund trocknet aus. So, Chapter 5. The winds blow downhill. June gave way to July. On the 4th of the month, Edwin Arnold was set to attend his first ever press conference. As an assistant to the higher-ups of the political column, that is. The contentious inheritance of Weber Hart had been a matter of great public interest since the great intellectual's sudden passing 1 month prior. And his closest living heir, his adopted son, died at sea shortly after Hart's own death. Edwin nodded as he patted his bike. Just ahead is Cromwell Street Hill. 2 days today, I reach the top without stopping, even once. He shouted with his trademark enthusiasm. His best friend and the chairman of the board are both laying claim to the inheritance. However, there are rumors the son's death was perpetrated by the two men themselves. Everyone breathing grew ragged. That's a pretty common plot. Still caught these rumors? Be true? If I know, muttered Agnès. When the casino we go by, she was sitting behind Edwin on the luggage rack. The bike's vibration shook both her and the insulated bag in her arms. As it happened, there were many coffee lovers at Eden News, including as boss Brandon. Agnès stopped at her uncle's artisanal blend there once a week. The catering service was more than a hobby for Agnès, but she tolerated it well enough. The fact that everyone insisted on escorting her during deliveries, however, was just a bit bothersome. So I'm still hoping to land at cooking column, she asked. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to do one next month, so I'm putting together a new article. Gotta write about whatever's in season after all. Alright, just report getting its start from a cooking column. Yes and yes? Being with Edwin like this put her at ease. As she fussed over her hair, which was fluttering the wind, top her head, the perennially drowsy Kakamaro let out yet another yawn. You just don't get it, do you? Edwin asked. There was no shame in the cooking column. I'll be having many readers spice up the dinner tables. If my article can make even one person's life easier. And began paddling up the hill with all of his might. Boys say there isn't just on that too, he roared. The bicycle crested over the hill, letting gravity pull it over to the other side before propelling effortlessly down the slope. Agnès let out an astonished yelp, only for it to be drowned out by Ed's joyous cries as he picked up speed. He continued on and on, riding the rushing wind. His exhilarations and feeling must be his reward for working so hard, thought Agnès. She clutched her head to her head to keep it from flying off, and laughed at herself for being so shocked. I was always looking ahead. He was always chasing after his ambitions with the one-track mind of his. Then to the point where it annoyed her. About what you said back there. Sorry, I can't hear you. Agnès raised her voice to yell over the wind. The rumor about Mr. Hart's heir being killed for the inheritance. Someone might have done it if they thought for sure they wouldn't get caught. I nodded several times in sage understanding. Got it, I was asked about it in today's interview. She's invested going to get you. It was as dense and simple as they come, but it was also the reason Agnès felt so easy around him. At ease around him. The reason they got along so well. She made sure he wasn't looking before grinning wildly in a way she had never shown anyone before. Today Edwin had made another step toward adulthood. He might stumble and make a fool of himself, but you know, he would keep pushing forward like always. She only wished she could be there to watch her herself. And yes? What? If something ever happens, call me, okay? I'm a just report after all. Yeah, Edwin. Stopper echoed across the blue sky. Ich könnte auch nochmal kommen, weil ich hier durch bin mit dem Lesen, auch mal gucken, wen Agnès hier referenced. Ich habe nämlich schon eine Idee, wer hier so eine Reference zu Agnès sein könnte, beziehungsweise nicht welche Person im Speziellen, aber was für ein Background sie hat. Chapter 6, for sure. After dropping Agnès off at 18 years, Edwin was led by a group of senior reporters to the largest assembly hall in Anchorville. There would attend a press conference concerning the matter of Mr. Hart's enormous inheritance. Why did it get to the story? Edwin psyched himself up. He had been told to save some seats for his team, but as he hurried to the press room, he found himself twisting through a maze of unfamiliar corridors. He wasn't quite sure what was happening. Where am I? Where in the world is the press room? His irritation grew and his pace quickened. He checked doors at random, all of which only led to storage rooms and more corridors. You could already picture Agnès saying and saying something sarcastic about his total lack of direction. Letting himself, he pressed on. Just then a loudspeaker announced that the conference would begin in 20 minutes. Oh, that's not good. 11. With impatience, Edward flung open the nearest door. Upon it was a plaque emblazoned with gold lettering that read Writing Room 105. Inside stood a man in his late 30s, adjusting the necktie on his professional suit. Oh, I was under the impression that still had some time for the press conference, no? He asked. I recognized him. He'd seen the man in photos of the Hart's case mirror players. He was neither Hart's best friend nor the chairman of the Hart Foundation. Rather, he was the middleman charged with managing all of Hart's assets. But he was still alive. Someone deeply invested in the inheritance case. Oh, yeah, die Statement, Montana, Montagna? Kein Plan, wie man das spricht. Right, Edwin. Also, auf jeden Fall französischen Ursprungs, aber I don't know. Completely ignoring Montaigne's question, I'm Edwin, and I'm with the news. Review about today's press conference? The request was completely ridiculous. It was as if he was trying to hog the entire story for himself. He was well, I guessed it, but Edwin was the usual serious expression. The vision of the inheritance needs to be agreed upon by both parties, to ensure the Kanal. I'm a tax counsel and a lawyer, Teil explained, sinking back into the cushions of a black leather chair. He agreed to divulge what he could, partially out of sympathy. His solution would be a greeny 50-50 split, but since there are properties and variables and items to consider, I can't imagine either party will serve without a fight. The total inheritance is substantial, right? Good. I will then be gunning for the whole thing. Comment, this doesn't concern me. See then. Do you know anything about the death of the original heir, Mr. Hart's adopted son last month? The silence gripped the room. Montaigne, who had been corroborated thus far, was as still as a statue. Did I go too far? Before? There's a kind of question a tabloid would print. As Ed realized the impropriety of his question, and Montaigne quickly shifted his right hand, tapping his middle finger against the end table before touching his temple with his index finger. I wasn't sure what the gesture was meant to convey. This might be the truth, so please keep this off the record. Speaking personally, I have no interest in Mr. Hart's inheritance, said Montaigne. It's true that there's a considerable amount of money on the line, but I don't believe it's enough to warrant killing someone over. Montaigne continued. You may already know this, but there are a few things in this world of even greater value. Things beyond human comprehension, like, for instance, a clan of magicians, perhaps? The newsroom was nearly deserted. All the reporters had left to cover their stories. Agnès refilled the cups of the few remaining staffers as she scanned the room. Between an unfinished draft left on the desk and some unedited notes posted on the wall, Agnès had a decent idea of what tomorrow's issue of the Eden News would look like. Seems Ed won't be getting his chance anytime soon, she thought. Now the car accident too. It feels like there's been way too many of those lately. Her eyes landed on the picture near the front of the room. Excuse me, Mr. Chang, who's this man? Even though the newsroom was restricted to employees, no one recommended Agnès for being there. Even Chang, who was notorious for being a stickler, nimble gave her a glance and identified the name as Mr. Haas, estate manager. Apparently, photo was taken at a press conference 2 days ago. The shrewd businessman's photo fitting his with threat. This man could destroy me, she thought. He may even know who I really am. Chapter 7, Edmund's Justice. Montaigne told the story long ago, in the time of the world's creation, written of in the Testament. Mankind possessed the ability to use arts at will. Over the ages, this ability became lost to time. Nowadays, the only way to access arts is through the use of an ornament. However, one clan inherited that other's power. They are known as magicians. They exist in the present day, living normally among the rest of modern society. I know this is a lot to take in, so I can hardly blame you for being skeptical, Cherry talks. However, I suspect there may be a magician in our very own city. Perhaps they are even closer to us than we realize. Now, with that in mind, we consider the death of Mr. Haas' adopted son. If he truly was murdered by inexplicable means, perhaps it was the work of a magician. Arthur Montaigne warned Edwin to keep the story to himself. Tell no one, not even your family, he said. But next time it will be one of us, telling him that. Edwin was once a selfish and naive child, that is until one day he was 14 or 15 and saw a reporter's article exposing the evil deeds of some big-shot politician in a faraway land. The legislator had used his position and the suffering of others to line his pockets with mirror, but the exposé destroyed his career. Afterwards, the reporter carefully remarked that it was their job to reveal the inequities of the world and attempt to right its wrongs. Since that day, Edwin's sense of justice centered on uncovering everyday hypocrisies and shining a light on the vague and obscure. Magicians, wondered Edwin. If people like that really are hiding out there, I would just have to expose them myself. The newsroom was as busy as ever, and in particular was engrossed in his work as of late. He never stopped going to the cafe and asking Agnès to check his drafts. What is he up to? She wondered. Right over there, Agnès called out in a relative whisper. Yeah, what are you doing here? As soon as he saw her, Edwin scrambled to put away the manuscript he had been working on his desk. Agnès, who had managed to catch a brief look at his documents before he set them aside, for they looked like the kind of materials he would give her before writing an article. There was an itemized breakdown of Mr. Hart's inheritance, notes from the press conference, a statement made by the estate manager, Mr. Montaigne, a brief story about a girl with a ribbon, and a written request from Brandon to reformat the personal history of the board's chairman. She also about two spelling mistakes on his working draft, but Edwin's distant attitude had miffed her, so she decided to keep it in her back pocket as ammo to tease him if the next time he came to her cafe. I was up making the rules, so I brought you lunch. You haven't eaten yet, right? Good timing, Agnès. Thanks for saving me the trouble. He snatched a wrapped sandwich from her hand and made an immediate beeline for the door. Mumbling his curious about chasing a story with his mouth half full. Something about his clumsiness seemed different than usual, to the point where Agnès felt lightheaded as Ed vanished from sight like a fleeting mirage. Was it just me or something off about him? She glanced over to Brandon and Carly for answers, but all they could do was shrug, looking no less troubled than her. Agnès was in confusion written all over their faces. What does this mean? What the hell is that up to? Sehr gute Frage. Sehr gute Frage. Achso, 22 Cards. Aber ich glaube, so viel kann man sagen. Man kann sich, glaube ich, gut vorstellen, dass es so einen Stamm von Magiern gibt in Kalwart. Wenn es in Crossbell eine Alchemistenfamilie gibt, die seit 7 Jahrhunderten schon lebt. Oder vielleicht schon länger. Chapter 8, 22 Cards of Fate, Part 1. Agnès was disturbed and shaken up by Edmund's behavior, even after she returned from Eden News. Nobody was straightforward and easy to read, but now... She wrapped down the countertop and rearranged the glasses and silver in an attempt to calm herself, but anxiety remained. The only customer, old man Purdue, sat at a nearby table, chatting leisurely with Agnès' uncle. After Agnès, she was one in kind. "Any ideas, Kagamaru?" she asked. Kagamaru was curled up on his favorite spot on the counter, which was therefore Edwin's usual seat. The cat stared at her yet with his usual lethargic look. "I figured as much," she thought. Agnès reached for a knit cap, but stopped herself. Even if she ran out searching for it now, she knew she wouldn't be able to find him. He had his bike and was bound to be on the move at all times. How work-up he was. Then Agnès opened a drawer behind the bar and removed an odd-looking deck of tarot cards. Yeah, these ought to do the trick. Pinpointing the last items for tarot card readings was well from the clan's rules. Every now and then, Agnès would even do some fortune telling for their regular customers. It was nice to hear them tell her she had been right, but what really made her happy was getting to use her powers freely. Reading with fortune for one's own benefit, however, was wholly forbidden. After all, too much knowledge can be a danger in and of itself. I hesitated briefly before doing the string that bound the deck together. There's something off about Edmund today. I'm sure of it. She excitedly before placing her fingers upon his deck of cards, imagining the possible answers that they held, no matter how small, come to yes. "Excuse me, miss. Certainly a cute little girl, about 10 years old, stood before her. Can I help you?" Agnès asked as she took her hands off her cards, wondering when the girl had come in. "Oh, telling fortunes, miss. Can you do mine too?" The girl introduced herself as Tease, and said she was looking for answers. She fidgeted with the red ribbon she wore. Apparently father was in the middle of a difficult job and she wanted to know how it would turn out. But I just wondered if the little girl was from the area. She'd never seen her before. The request came at a fortuitous moment though. Agnès was reluctant to use her powers for herself, but she had a far fewer qualms about using them to help others. "Well, I'm making an exception just for today, so what will it be, Tease? I'll take one single request." "Aye? Never lie, I never do my tarot cards." "Or two." She seemed even younger than she looked. The way she asked about the meaning of each and every card. As the girl sat aside by the counter and continued performing the reading, the results were adequate. Let's see. One of those cards are telling me on your papa's work is finishing up well. Should be just fine. I smiled. She beamed with gratitude, but it was actually Agnès who wanted to thank her. Your anxiety had vanished, and she felt more like herself again. She waved goodbye as Tease left shortly after, the doorbell chiming as the door swung shut behind her. "Now then, what about Ed's fortune?" Agnès thought. She sat at the counter and carefully gave her the cards. Her palms were sweaty, but she tried to ignore them. It's not important, Agnès muttered. When it came to the more serious readings, Agnès always used the same procedure. First she would make a fervent wish, then try sending a card. In Agnès' case, this was the most reliable method. Alright, Ed, just what are you up to? "Is you dropped one?" "No?" For some reason, Tease was once again standing beside her. The girl crouched and picked up a card from the floor. She took it and thanked her, and the card just on the floors, as if she had been petrified. It was Death, the Rebel's card. And this was overcome by the dizziness, and in her face, failed to notice Tease's departure. The delicate forces stopped trembling. Cards on the deck shifted, then one after another they rose from Agnès' left hand and floated in the air. But the solitary object of Agnès' focus was the card before her. Death. A thought brought Agnès back to consciousness. She looked up and saw Kagamaru staring back at her, perched on her head. In a moment, the tarot cards hanging in the air fell to the floor. Kagamaru? The cat hopped nimbly onto the counter and pinpointed his drowsy eyes at her as if to say, "What do you think you're doing?" "Oh, I was just a little surprised, that's all." Agnès muttered to herself as she gave it a scatter cross. For whatever reason, younger Abentuer hadn't noticed anything. It's careful of me. I need to forget about all of this and get back to work, she thought. Then again, Agnès placed a death card on the counter and drew a card from the now reshuffled deck. She couldn't read the same fortune twice, so instead she tried to focus on whatever it was that Ed has been checking these past weeks. For our next story, yet another traffic incident occurred at around 1 this afternoon. The overrated bus having turned on by itself. It was putting too much power into the rating. Agnès thought, after checking off her dizziness, she turned her attention to the newly drawn card. The sun reversed, in other words, darkness. Agnès pondered the potential meaning of the second card, that remarks against the neutral lady. If darkness was linked to these events? Maybe I'd found a lead on it somehow and was tipping into the darkness all along. Kagamaru remarked chidingly, a languid expression on his face. "I know, but Purdue and Uncle haven't noticed a thing," Agnès retorted. She tried a deck of cards again, but stopped herself midway. It prefaced her to ask the Eden news staff about Ed's whereabouts. She headed to the over phone as he called out to the office. "Any news? How may I help?" "Oh, Brandon, sorry to bug you, but around noon, Edwin ran off somewhere to organize article. Do you happen to know where he went?" "Ed? What are you talking about? He's been here working his tech since morning." His face went pale. And was this his desk? No, that can't be really real, Ed, she thought. Outside a piercing sound echoed from in front of the cafe. Agnès watched through the windows as a crushed orbit scooter sailed through the air and careened into the street. The tower seemed to be dead before it even hit the ground, and yet Purdue and the army continued to chase all was right of the world. Agnès shook them by the shoulders, but neither reacted. She had no idea what was going on anymore. The world began to violently shake beneath her, and she squatted in place. Agnès was just now beginning to grasp the depth of the terrible power running amok in Anchorville. "I've got to stand," she thought. She put herself up, and peered over the death card and counter, but now it was the only truth she could believe in. The Path of the High Priestess. Chapter 10. The grandfather clock in the parlor struck twice, and Agnès quietly left her room. By the light of the moon, she passed through the cafe and locked the front door, slipping out into the chilly night. The day before, she had ruled out drawing one final card to determine where she would make her move. It was the High Priestess, the second arcana, which to her meant 2 a.m. "It is still okay," Agnès assured to herself, just a moment. Surely leaving at a moment in the morning would get her there in time to save him. She looked down and noticed that her hands were shaking. "I can't get ahead of myself though. It could die if I'm not careful. I just need to follow the cards and wait until 2 a.m. before doing anything." "Meow!" Kagamaru roosted upon Agnès' head. He was hairier than he looked, and he just wondered if his laziness was making him fat. Still, it brought a certain sense of comfort having his weight over her head. She took a deep breath to center herself and leave the glow of the full moon above. "Let's get going." In better condition, Agnès closed her eyes and felt out the septum rings beneath the earth, searching for where they grew stagnant. She then walked down the dim-lit street, guided by instincts toward the darkness beyond. Anchorville's nights were cold, even at the height of the summer. Agnès wore a light sweater and her cream-colored hair completed by the pale moonlight. The smellless necklace she wore adjusted in time for every step. The tiny stone was all Agnès had left of her mother. The memories were so distant that she couldn't even remember her face. When Agnès was just a child, her mother left without a trace after using her powers in the public. Such were the laws of the clan, and although Agnès could recall how she learned it, she knew exactly why it was so. Couldn't recall. "We carry dangerous potential within us," she recounted. "You must keep it hidden and live amongst the others." Before long, the road led out of the city and ended at the base of a large hill. "A cemetery," Agnès whispered. Atop the hill were rows of black tombstones. Among them, she spotted something moving about. "Aaron, he's here!" Agnès exclaimed. There was no mistaking it. She recognized him by the coat he was wearing. He was still charred from the traffic accident, so it's week back. I've told him so many times to get rid of it, but he still rang that bloody thing, she thought. Alice moved the Kagamara from her head, and she had him in her arms, holding the wedding crystal. She berated herself for wearing such a conspicuous outfit. Regardless of her lack of foresight, however, she knew Edwin was in mortal danger. After steadying her breath and carefully gauging the distance between the two of them, I crept quietly into the shadows. Chapter 11, left only to scream. Alice could tell that Edwin was making a clumsy attempt to tail someone through the graveyard. The lackluster performance was actually beginning to irritate her. Jeez, he's gonna get caught if he keeps this up. Alice mumbled, and being said, she couldn't see who Red was pursuing from her place in the shadows. Eventually, the chase concluded, uneventfully, at the top of the hill. Something's up, Agnès thought. By then, Ed had come out of hiding and was facing an unknown figure. Sorry, she gave me the slip again. These things happen. Damn it, I thought for sure tonight would be the night. Still, Mr. Montaigne. Was that little girl really created by a magician? Ich denke mal, sie reden über Tees. Without a doubt, inside the yummy-looking shadow is a malevolent power, an evil spirit. You've done your research, so I know you're aware that she's been present at each and every accident. The man said as she waved his right hand in front of Ed. She deals lies with a single diagonal strike through the heart, continued, tracing a line across his chest. Your spirits create disturbances and only magicians can perceive their presence. Is it so, inside? Seems you don't fully believe me yet. In that case, let me tell you something else you might find interesting. The man leaned over to respond to Edmund's ear, but in the calm of the moonlit graveyard, it felt as if he was speaking directly to Agnès. You're a magician. Can steal their powers. Agnès reared to overcome with ridicule, listening to bees at her feet. She cursed at herself under her breath. Killing a magician? How could I be so blind? The estate manager, Montaigne, had completely fallen into his trap. She corrected herself. And yes, why are you here? Who knows what time it is? It was a dance that she wondered if she might be able to use it to her advantage. She thought focused not on Edwin, but you Montaigne instead. So when you're tired this whole time, huh? I was in the rear, you were such a young lady though. All these horrible acts, so much death, just to get to me? You make it sound so frivolous, when in fact this is the only way of an imitation like me to gain more power. Ed, get out of here! The stage straight at Montaigne. Get it close to distance and get him away from Ed, she thought. Kagamaru had left Agnès' arms to run alongside her, turned around with me out and warning. Ah! An invisible force swept Agnès' legs out from under her. She flipped from behind. She somersaulted to the ground, a sharp pain coursing through her. Blood gushing from her thigh, something had pierced through it. A child's laugh echoed behind her as a red ribbon fluttered in the wind. Your little girl was at a cafe today. Teas? I mean, Papa's work is finishing up well, told me so yourself. Tea's porcelain skin, undulated in the moonlight, as if something was curling beneath the surface. My daughter's quite well made, isn't she? boasted Hughes. I screamed with all her might. Ed, get away from him! My son Edwin then shook himself back to his senses, while beginning to process the instance spying before his very eyes. So long this evil spirit you've been chasing the past week was really just this thing you called your daughter? Montaigne, it was you all along. You're the magician, he shouted. His mind is a fake, thought Agnès. Just using the powers he stole from a real magician from Weber Hart. But please, she had to get out of here. Montaigne deftly raised his right hand as if he were commanding the attention of a rapt audience. My dear Edwin, I must thank you for bringing me the girl. Oh, this is the end of our partnership. Now you shall become part of my power. Here you mentioned toward the boy with his white fingers and the crisp snap ringing at his ears. Just like that, Edwin's eyes rolled back and his body fell to the cold ground below. Nur noch 4 Chapter. Nee, warte. Nur noch 3 Chapters, die ich lesen muss. Das wird wieder eine lange Folge. Chapter 12, Eclipse atop the hill. What is she doing? I got Edwin into his office, a semi-conscious mind. Agnès was crying, sobbing even. She looked like she was hitting something, but she lost the advantage and was sent flying backwards. Calling it a fight would be hardly fair. Agnès didn't stand a chance. She would be stronger than I am, Edwin mused. Agnès was cloud and shone a brilliant white light, but for whatever reason, Edwin thought this looked very natural on her. Soon faded. In his mind, the girl with the ribbon materialized before him. Oh, there you are, mister. Okay, this way. Let's go help Papa together. Shoot her arms tightly around him. The ribbon, cold and strong, like a vise. Edwin let out an involuntary grunt as she squeezed him. Hey, you! Oh, let's look at some power soon. I want to help grant his wish like a good little girl. Come on, let's hurry. Let's a tease. The longer he looked, the less he could accept the truth that she was an evil spirit trapped inside a human shell. Mr. Montaigne is your real father, right? Edwin said in a strained voice. It's best to give her a shaky thumbs up. And to meet your real father, you'll find him. But I'm a righteous reporter. Ed! If we began treating him immediately, he might stand a chance. His father would still jump forwards. We could only just get to him. No, Montaigne was not about to allow her the chance. And his body was abruptly thrown into the air by some visible force, tumbling helplessly into the ground a distance away. I never make it. Can't even stand, he gasped. Tears fell from my eyes as she collapsed against the dirt. Kicking around ran to her and I mentioned a motion for her to run. The watcher was no longer able to detect his presence. Alright, he's always been here for me. My whole life I've kept my distance from everyone else, but he was the lone exception. My most cherished memories are the ones I spent with him. I've tried so hard to hide it, but my one and only friend. Absolutely magnificent. Montaigne stood at the crest of the hill with the moon at his back. You young lady, show me my second. Magicians truly are of immeasurable value, aren't they? I've gained this power by chance, but now, simply by killing one magician after another, I can become omnipotent. The best of all, there are so many lives to reap for sports. Montaigne roared with his laughter. What curious creatures magicians are. Their powers are both an infinite source of desires and a boundless grandeur of them. The body known as T stopped moving, the face contorted as the spirit of him wreathed violently beneath his skin. Finally, a flesh tore, the spirit burst forth. The shadowy form of Montaigne's magic was unmistakable even under the shade of night. So the vessel has reached its limits, has it? No matter. Montaigne whispered. The dignity returned to him and coiled around his body. Being pain with this power brings me so much joy. But I plan to finish you with my own hands anyway. No, don't make bloody artwork of you. Try to enjoy yourself. That's all you are. Murderer, Agnès screamed, having lost all inhibitions. The man clad in coils of shadows grew intoxicated by the power enveloping him, bursting into laughter at the accusation. I'm not doing this on my own will. It's this power. Your power. Your blessed magician sought to blame, fronted the youth. Before his eyes, the pitch-black darkness rose over the hills and blocked out the moon before surging forth. His mind stirred, Montaigne's right, and power, the magician's power is a curse. Misfortunes befalls anybody who gets too close to us. The very true nature of this power must never be reared, no matter the cost. So Red, henceforth, I just wanted to be a righteous reporter and die. Yes, suddenly closed her eyes. Chapter 13, The Magician. The man enveloped in magical power grew increasingly maniacal. Things have been so very hard for me since obtaining this power, you know. I want to make the urge to torment, to make the light leave the eyes of others and enjoy every moment of it. I just can't help myself. It's a power that makes me feel this way. You better be treated. I obey. And dark energy rushed from his body and rushed over the cemetery with the fury of a hurricane, eradicating the tombstones in his path as he steered her course towards Agnès. Then you heard the shout of a young man cut through the gale. "You're wrong!" Against all odds, Adam stood between the attacker and his prey, with his singed coat around his shoulders, and his trusty messenger bag in his holster chance. Everyone knows that the one who does the deed is the one at fault. Don't complain this own magic when you don't even understand it. Wounded confetti dotted the scene, floating gently in the air. It was the torn remnants of Ed's manuscript. It somehow blocked the black magic with his bag. Agnès, who had just been resigned to her fate, grew up with an expression. "Aaron? You say? How?" And put his thumb at his chest and grinned. "Well, I have to tell you, never underestimate a righteous reporter." Agnès had so many things she wanted to say, but in that moment, she was simply at a loss for words. "I'm going to beat you down, Montaigne, and after that, you're going to give me a post-fight interview." "Just curve me, boy. How did it rage the bag to stop my magic? Why were you even alive in the first place?" He responded, rushing forward without hesitation. "Ah, jeez, Agnès thought. Still, it was Edwin she knew. Always true to himself. A crusader to the very end. Even now, Edwin didn't completely believe in magic. He wasn't even able to say any of Montaigne's twisted powers, but he wasn't going to rule it out as impossible to write it off as some kind of curse. He would piece the truth together himself, by bit. He was just the sort of boy Edwin was, recklessness and all. Kagamaru, the cat who was clinging to the backside of Ed's brown back, had been the one who actually negated the dark magic spell. Fixed his short black pubis on Agnès, as if to say, "You're sure about this?" "I don't want to lie to him anymore. I'll show him the truth." "Dream here," shouted Black. She looked up into the night sky. It's a full moon tonight. Although there was no wind to move them, Agnès' Scream's blonde curls danced about as her arms erupted, with rays of light, illuminating the darkness. Finale. Sunshine? Agnès. Edwin Arnold had never been able to get a better of that girl, not even once. He was confident in his physical strength and thought himself fairly sharp to boot. Despite it, he was caught in a losing streak that left him at a loss for words. Much might have changed in the day, 2 years ago, and perhaps it never would. The wave of lights and everything hurling up into the sky. Edwin found himself suspended aloft, Agnès' hands in his. They were soft and warm as the sunshine. Her whole body shone, and cream blonde hair flickering like a white hot flames. "Thank you, it's been fun. What's going on? Why are you... Am I dreaming?" "You're right. Your sense is over. Even though you won't be able to remember what happened today, there's something I need to tell you." When I smiled, it was a rare expression of pure happiness. She had never shown it to anyone before, something of course she had never been able to do, until now. The magician had. "This is where I truly am." I wasn't sure if he was shocked or if he had some already known. Now that the protagonist, Agnès was smart, good in a fight, seemingly knew everything, and a sharp intuition to boot. It explained a lot if she was a magician. That's Agnès for you. Now go fix me a bourbon. If she could, she would have served him an iced tea instead. But it was impossible, and this was no longer in Anchorville. Edwin was finally released from the hospital, being treated for 2 ribs that he didn't even remember breaking. From there he boarded a long distance off a bus bound for the capital. It was too far of a trip for his trusty bicycle. Besides, the other time he spent in the bus would be a good chance to plan his next move. Hugh Montaigne had been arrested for the murder of Weebart Hart, and its investigation committees revealed her grave had been desecrated. He prayed that she could now rest in peace. Even the deadly strings of car accident had finally come to an end. Leaning against the shaking frame of the bus, Edwin thought about the future. The people of Angerville had completely forgotten the events of that day. Nobody knew when Agnès had vanished. Even Edwin could scarcely remember what happened that night. Every day he tried with all of his might to remember. Only recently did he manage to recollect her final wisdom. This won't be the last time we meet. Well, so long as I don't become a reporter as it is. And what do you mean by that? Oh, reporters are supposed to shine light on the regular obscure, aren't they? As clasped her hand around the Esmeralda's necklace she wore, the pain was clear as day. You're right, oblivious, for your own feelings said. Edwin huffed, still not giving up. I'm going to become a righteous reporter, no matter what she says. From his spot by the window, Edwin flicked through his notebook to check his agenda. Being a freelance reporter was more challenging than he had ever imagined, but in particular had gotten frustrated countless times while training him. But there's no way I can back down after hearing stuff like that from Agnès of all people. She says we can never meet again, huh? Well, I don't believe that. I'm going to keep on being a reporter and make my feelings clear as day while I'm at it. Just wait, Agnès. I swear I'll find you. Deren race across the right on Prairie. Calvert's winds were magnificent. It's a really strong gust, huh? His own grandmother in his very same pass. Long ago, with children resting in her hands, as her green blonde hair bobbed in the daylight. Where would I go and the sunshine would follow, just as it did when she had an anchor run. Edwin chuckled softly to himself. Raj's brother can only believe what he's seen with his own eyes, you know. The bus drove down the gravel road beneath the vast blue August sky. The end. Jesus, das war wieder viel. Und ich will mal eine kleine Post-Reading-Research machen. Kaseki Wiki. Kaseki Wiki, by the way. Die Kaseki Wiki ist halt eine sehr schöne Ressource, Klaus. Schon Crossbell Arcs, Teil zu Azure. Gibt's irgendwas? Nee. Contents, Books. Hier ist anscheinend Agnès. Das ist auch noch ein Ding, was wir mal lesen müssen. Es kommt aber erst noch viel später. Das wird aber keine Bücherreihe sein, wie wir sie bisher immer gelesen haben, in-game. Es wird eine kleine, ja, Prequel, Prequel-Bookstory geben, die für 2 Charakter spezifisch sind, die für Trails into Reverie relevant werden. Und das wird man auf jeden Fall vorlesen. Wenn ich das nämlich richtig hier sehe, die hat einen Cameo-Adresse. Ach ja, ich glaube, ich weiß ungefähr. Ich will mich auch jetzt gar nicht zu viel spoilern. Ich will da gerade mal ganz kurz nochmal hier gucken. So. Schön. Also es gibt mir aber gerade keine. Dann. Warte mal. Man muss ein bisschen suchen manchmal, wenn man die Person suchen, die man hat. So. Also es gibt einen Yes-Character später in dem Tower, aber ich scheint jetzt nicht direkt damit verbunden zu sein. Ah ja, ja, genau. Ja, mal gucken. Aber wir hätten jetzt erstmal das damit. So, ich kann mal mein Tablet wieder machen.